Nora frowned. Before she could answer, a gentle but anxious voice said, "Are you trying to drive me to my grave, Henry?" On the hospital bed, a gentle middle-aged woman wearing a hospital gown struggled to sit up. Her scalp had been shaved, and her illness had left her looking frighteningly thin. Her cheeks were sunken, but all the physical effects of her condition couldn't hide her kind and gentle personality. She was Irene Smith, Nora's aunt. Nora took a couple of quick steps forward and sat on the edge of the bed. She held her hand and said softly, "Aunt Irene." Irene looked Nora up and down for a moment. Then her eyes turned red. "You look so much like your mum now you've slimmed down, Nora." Her voice trembled as she spoke. "You've had such a hard time all these years." During Nora's years abroad, Henry had never given her a single cent. It was Irene who had always sent her money. Although it wasn't much, it had been her way of showing kindness to her niece, and it had warmed Nora's heart. Interrupting the lovely moment between aunt and niece, Nora's stepmother, Wendy, said, "Nora, your aunt has been pretty good to you ever since you were a child, right? She's sick now, and you're the only one who can help." Nora frowned. A brain tumor. She picked up her aunt's medical reports and CT scan results and started to read them. Wendy continued to nag at her side. "Your aunt's operation is too difficult, Nora. A single mistake and she'll suffer brain damage. Everyone in the hospital is afraid to do it. Dr. Larson, the head of the Department of Neurology in this hospital, is Angela's professor. If she asks him to do it, maybe he'll be willing to take a risk and give it a go." Wendy sighed before continuing. "But now Anthony's saying that without the company, he'll never get engaged to your sister. Angela is terribly upset. We can't expect her to help when she's already under so much stress. You can fix this. If you give your sister the company, Angela will ask Dr. Larson for help. Whether your aunt's operation goes through or not completely depends on you now." When Wendy finished speaking, Henry shouted angrily, "You must also apologize to Angela for sabotaging her marriage proposal and for attacking her." Wendy, who seemed determined to try and keep up her act as the good guy, said, "Henry, stop. We're a family. What are you saying all of these things for? Nora, your aunt's operation can't be delayed any further. You need to sign this agreement as soon as possible." Throughout this exchange, Nora had been reading her aunt's CT scan over and over. It was indeed a tricky operation. The tumour had enveloped the blood vessels, so the slightest mistake could lead to fatal complications. Her aunt could die in surgery. Very few doctors anywhere would dare to take on a surgery like this. Nora herself, or more accurately, Dr. Athena, was one of the exceptions. Many in the medical community proclaimed Athena as a once-in-a-generation prodigy. After all, she blazed through over a decade of medical school and surgical practice in only a few years. But Nora was humble. She believed she only managed this through dedicated studying and practice. But everyone knew it was due to her immense intellect. Next to her, Irene was yelling angrily at Henry and Wendy. "Henry, that company is the one thing that Nora's mother left for her. How can the two of you be so greedy?" Wendy smiled. "Now, Irene, that's not quite true. She didn't just leave it to Nora, did she? She was still married to Henry at that time. It's their joint property." Irene looked at Nora again. "Don't listen to their nonsense, Nora. My illness is incurable. Even if you sign that agreement and have them perform surgery on me, there's a 90% chance that it'll fail anyway. Don't give in to them. Just get out of here. Okay, I'll visit you again when I have time." Nora put down the medical record and turned and walked out. Her aunt was in a serious condition and could not afford any further delays. Nora knew the first thing she needed to do was contact the hospital and ask to borrow their facilities. Henry and Wendy hadn't expected Nora to just leave without a fight. They watched in shock as she disappeared from the ward. "She's completely ungrateful, after everything you did for her, Irene." Wendy seemed equally bitter. She lamented, "You were so kind to her, Irene, but in the end, she didn't even want to stay with you a moment longer." Irene bit her lip. Her eyes were red. Finding me a doctor had nothing to do with Nora from the start. In his father's suite at Hotel Finest, Pete was struggling with his tutors. "Why didn't you finish your work from this morning, Pete? This section is completely blank. We can't continue with the afternoon syllabus until it's done. Finish your work." Pete took another look at the assignment. The tutor was lying. This hadn't been part of his assigned work. He didn't speak, but instead turned to calmly stare at the tutor. The tutor curled her lip. "What are you looking at me for? Your father had no problem with these lessons when he was your age. Don't you even know how to do this question? Maybe you inherited your brains from your mother, whoever she was. I suppose we can blame her if you're not up to this." It was only when he heard the word mother that Pete finally reacted. His jaw was clenched as he picked up the pen. He started to work through the questions quietly. He had already learned how to solve these problems a long time ago. "I'll show them. My mum isn't and neither am I," he thought resentfully. But as soon as he finished, the tutor said, "You haven't done it properly. Why don't you write out your workings? I've already told you so many times. Stretch out your hand." Pete thought, do I really have to write out my workings for such an easy question? He didn't move. Pete stood for the next 2 hours until his calves were sore. Only then did the tutors end the afternoon lessons. They were still whispering between themselves when they left. "He really can't speak. All right, don't go on about it too much. The old lady has instructed us to take good care of him." "Okay, we'll come back to report to Mr. Hunt later this evening. We'll make sure to report the child was stubborn and didn't do what he was told. Children who don't do their homework aren't good children." After the two of them left, Pete looked at the homework assigned by the tutors on the table. He knew that his answers would definitely be wrong again. Even if he completed all the work, they would still say that he hadn't done it right. Even so, he didn't want to speak. He pressed his lips together tightly when he thought of what the consequences would be if he gave in. All he wanted now was to talk to his mum and the little girl next door who was so good at playing games. The light in his eyes flickered again when he thought of seeing them. Unfortunately, the lady next door had been sent away, so she was now staying 1 floor down. 1 floor down. Pete stood up and quietly left the suite. He knew he couldn't take the elevator without his father's bodyguard stopping him, so he crept along the wall until he reached the door to the stairwell. He opened the door carefully and darted in. Meanwhile, while Mrs. Lewis was distracted with making dinner, Cherry was also taking advantage of an opportunity to slip away unnoticed. She hadn't managed to make her visit to the top floor the previous day, but she was still determined to go up there and look for her father. Cherry was dressed in another stylish little outfit. She entered the stairwell, and her short little legs climbed up the stairs with great effort. As she walked, she realized she could hear footsteps coming down from above. As she looked up, she saw Pete walking down the stairs toward her. Their eyes met, and they both froze in their tracks. It was getting late, so the light in the narrow stairwell was rather dim. Pete stared at Cherry in shock. Her eyes were wide as saucers, and her mouth was hanging open. They stared at each other for some time. Cherry was the first to speak. "Why is there a mirror in the stairwell?" Pete grinned slightly. "This isn't a mirror." Cherry was confused. "Why do you look exactly the same as me then?" They fell quiet for a few more seconds. Then Pete hesitantly said, "Are we twins?" Cherry had reached the same conclusion. She was thrilled and leaped forward. She hugged Pete tightly. "Wow! Did I just meet? Oh my gosh! I found my brother!" She was so excited she could barely get the words out. Pete stiffened. He'd always refused and avoided physical contact with others in the past, and he wasn't used to it. It was a peculiar feeling. He should be overjoyed at finding this girl who looked so like him she couldn't be anything but his identical twin sister. His family was getting bigger by the day. It should be heartwarming, but it made him think of when he had eaten dinner with his mum the other night, and she'd hugged him. Did she mistake me for this girl? Is that why she hugged me? Was none of it real after all? Pete wondered. Thinking about that dinner encounter, Pete turned pale. He sounded a little sad as he asked, Why did Mummy abandon me? Cherry let go of him and hurriedly explained. Mummy didn't abandon you. It was our horrid grandpa who sent you away. The reason we came back to the States was so we could look for you. Really? Cherry nodded repeatedly. She was worried her brother wouldn't believe her. It's true, it's true. Her soft hands grabbed hold of Pete's, and she led him down the stairs. Let's go find Mummy. She'll be overjoyed I found you, and then she'll take us home. We can all be together again. Pete stopped. But what about Daddy? Cherry paused. Oh, I forgot about him. Mummy definitely won't want Daddy. Why? Mummy thinks he and his family are trouble. She thinks he's annoying. Does Daddy like Mummy? Pete replied, his expression hard to read. Daddy seems to hate her. What do we do? They sat down on the steps together. They looked like two peas in a pod as they tried to think of a plan. By the way, my name is Cheryl Smith, but everyone calls me Cherry. What's your name? Peter Hunt. Everyone calls me Pete. I want to spend time with both you and Daddy, Pete, but I can't leave Mummy either. What can we do? Do you have any ideas? Pete replied slowly, deep in thought as a plan took shape in his mind. Yes, I think I do. Cherry jumped up, excited all over again. What is it? Pete explained his idea seriously. We have to make Daddy and Mummy fall in love. Then they won't hate each other anymore, and we can all be happy together. Here's what we need to do. They put their heads together and plotted, working out all the details of Pete's plan. When they were finally ready to head their separate ways, Cherry had an idea of her own. I want to play with Daddy. Can we pretend to be each other tonight? Pete also wanted to spend some time with his mother, so he agreed instantly, his eyes shining brightly. The twins said goodbye, and then quietly snuck back to each other's rooms, keen to put their plan into action. They couldn't wait to get their mum and dad together and fix their broken family. Nora contacted the hospital's management office after she left the ward. The administrator agreed to her request immediately. Athena was widely renowned as one of the best surgeons in the world. Several of her surgical videos had become classic teaching materials in many hospitals and medical colleges. Having her perform surgery in the hospital was undoubtedly an honor. There was just one condition. The management would want some of their internal medical personnel to assist, so they could observe and learn from the operation. Nora didn't mind agreeing to this request. Next, she had to sort the operation site and facilities. The hospital's equipment was outdated and couldn't meet the demands of such a sophisticated surgery. She'd need to borrow some from New York. As it was such short notice, it took her more than 2 hours of back and forth to settle all the arrangements. Only then did she return to the ward, intending to comfort her aunt. She thought Henry and Wendy would have left by then, but she heard a dispute in the ward as soon as she arrived. Henry was ranting arrogantly. If you want Angela to ask Dr. Larson to perform the surgery, then get Nora to surrender the company. Which is more important, that lousy company or her aunt's life? Irene's breathing was unsteady. Angela, I've always treated you well. I'd like to ask you for the same courtesy. Is the company or my life more important? Angela sneered. When have you ever treated me well, Aunt Irene? It's always been obvious you liked Nora more than me. Back when you were making dresses, you made us the same clothes, but you must have used more fabric for hers, right? If you'd really meant to treat me well, then you shouldn't have made any for her at all. Her selfish words angered Irene. Angela, Angela went on. Also, I know you gave us the same presents at Christmas. But did you think that I didn't know you always gave her extra in private? Just admit it. You love her more than me, don't you? She's more of a niece to you than I am, isn't she? What do you even see me as? Irene clenched her fist. I was giving her extra in her mother's stead. Angela was just about to say something when Lisa grabbed her hand. Her eyes were swollen from crying so much. Please, Angela. Put in a good word for us with Dr. Larson and save my mother. Please, Angela. Angela shook her off and stepped away. Don't think I'll relent just because you're turning on the waterworks. Oh, Lisa, what are you doing? Wendy exclaimed. You should be Nora for help instead. This caught Henry's attention, as though he'd just thought of a good idea. He said, Heed your aunt's advice, Lisa. Go to Hotel Finest now and try your luck there. Right in the lobby, out in public. Nora to save your mother. If she doesn't want to be embarrassed, she'll definitely agree to sign over the company. Outside the door, Nora's downcast eyes turned icy as she listened to her father. When she was a child, she'd thought her father liked her sister more than her because he didn't understand her. Hearing him now, she knew that he'd understood everything all along. There was no reason for his favoritism. How can he say such horrible things so calmly, as if it's all completely justified? Henry! Irene shouted sharply. How can you even consider treating Nora like that? She turned to Lisa and ordered, I forbid you to go to that hotel. The vain hope on Lisa's face drained little by little. Nora's uncle, Will Black, told his daughter sternly. He pointed at Henry, Wendy, and Angela and yelled, Get out of here, all of you. Irene gave her all for her nieces, but not a single one of you is a decent human being. As he pushed the three of them out of the ward, he saw Nora waiting outside and paused. Nora pressed her lips together, intending to tell him about the operation. Uncle Will. His eyes were red, and he was overcome with anger. He snapped at her. You're just as bad as the rest of them. Get lost.
Please subscribe to the Pocket FM YouTube channel and press the bell icon for instant notification. Check out our channel for more such exciting shows.